So, we have found ourselves with a multitude of eggs, just a ridiculous amount of eggs. We have some chickens, keep them in a coop in the back, they run around, they do their thing, and they've been doing it with a will. So we have a lot of eggs. So, I thought, lots of eggs can make a lot of quiche. So that's what we're going to do today. I've got 3 quiches that I have planned. The first one is going to be just a full-size quiche, and that's going to be spinach, garlic, and onion. Just a nice sort of herbal veggie quiche. The next one is going to be chicken and sun-dried tomatoes. Now the third one is going to be little mini quiches we're going to do in like a little cupcake tin or a muffin tin or something. Those will be leek and bacon. Those will be little, breakfasty quiches you can grab and go and head out the door with. So, got all the ingredients we're going to need right here. Got the onion, got the garlic, got the bacon, got the spinach, got the leeks, chicken's in the fridge. So for the crusts, all you need for the crusts are 2 cups of flour, single cup of butter, a little splash of water, a little bit of salt, and you're good to go. But we'll get to that in a minute. First off, we got to start prepping all of this, get it ready for cooking. So let's do that now.
So here I'm using about 1/3 of a pound of bacon, just cutting it into small strips so that I have enough bacon for just a few of these mini quiches that we're going to do in the little cupcake tin. So just chopping it into small bits, not using a whole lot because I want to make sure there's room for the egg and for the leek, but just enough bacon that you will definitely be able to taste it. Now, if you haven't tried cooking with leeks before, I highly recommend it. They're related to onions and incredibly delicious and versatile. Now when prepping leeks, you'll want to chop off the stems and then chop the leaves off about where they start to turn a dark green. The tops you can save and use for making a delicious vegetable stock. Just make sure to rinse them thoroughly, as even the store-bought ones often have a lot of dirt still hidden in their layers. So for our second of 3 quiches, I'm going to roughly chop about half an onion. Just slice off the top, place it cut end down, and slice through the middle. Make sure to leave the root end attached so all the delicious onion flavor doesn't seep out. After that, just make slices down the length of the onion and start chopping. Just make sure to keep your fingers tucked behind your knuckles when gripping the onion so they don't get sliced too. So the easiest way I've found to peel garlic is just to lay my knife on top of it, smash it a couple of times, and the peel just comes right off. So I only need a few cloves of this garlic, so I'm just going to peel them, slice them into little ribbons, and just roughly chop them to size. And there you are. With our prepping out of the way, let's get started on the dough. Now for our delicious, buttery, flaky crusts, you're going to add 2 cups of all-purpose flour to a mixing bowl, making sure to sift it first to take out any lumps you might encounter. Now to the 2 cups of flour, we're adding 1 cup or 2 sticks worth of butter. Now I'm using cold butter and squeezing it in with my fingers. It'll warm up some, but not too much. If the butter is too soft, the flour won't absorb it and incorporate it as well. Once the butter is in, make sure to get in there with your hands so that each piece is well coated in flour. After that, just a large pinch of salt and just a splash of water. You don't want a very wet dough, so just a splash or 2 of water will give you enough to make a shaggy dough that isn't too moist and difficult to deal with. Alright, now once you have your dough, just turn it out onto a floured surface and knead it a few times with the heel of your palms. You don't want to knead it too much, just enough that everything is folded in and you have a few layers in your dough. After that, just wrap it in saran wrap and let it rest in your fridge for 20 minutes. While your dough is resting, make sure to preheat the oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit, and then let's get to cooking the ingredients that we prepped earlier. Now I'm cooking the bacon just enough to start rendering out the fats, so that all that flavor can mix in with the flavor of the leeks as all the natural sugars in the leeks start caramelizing. I don't need to fully cook the bacon at this moment, as it'll finish cooking in the oven when we bake the quiche. I threw a little butter in the pan to melt and help flavor the onions as they too caramelize and mix with the flavor of the garlic. Top those with a little salt and pepper and toss it a few times to mix. You don't want to brown the onions here. Just cook them until they get soft and translucent and the garlic is fragrant but not burned. Alright, once the onions and garlic are out of the pan, I'm going to add the chicken in so it can soak up some of the flavors from the onion and garlic. Now, the chicken I'm using is already cooked, so all I'm doing now is just heating it up and adding a little bit of flavor. Alright, so now that our 20 minutes are up, we're going to grab our dough out of the fridge, let it come up to room temperature, unwrap it, and set it down on our floured work area so we can roll it out. And we're not looking for a perfect circle of dough here, just something roughly to shape with an even thickness. Once the dough is rolled out, grab your pie tin and grease it up to help stop the quiche from sticking to the sides. Then, gently lay the dough in the tin and start pressing it gently down. I like to snag a little piece of the dough to use as a small barrier to help press the dough down without my fingers tearing into it at all. Once the dough is in, you can either trim off the edges or fold them up and crimp them down for a nice presentation. Once that's all done, you're going to want to line the inside with foil and weigh it down with either pie weights or just some rice to stop the pastry from rising when we do our blind bake. Now, a blind bake doesn't mean that we close our eyes and grope around till we find the oven. It simply means letting the crust bake and take shape and brown up some before we add our final ingredients and pop it in for the full bake. So we'll place the weighed down crust in our oven for 10 minutes before we take it out, remove the weights, and return it to the oven until it's golden brown. While the dough is baking, it's time to make the egg mixture that we're going to pour in. I'm mixing 6 medium eggs in a bowl with a little salt, some freshly ground pepper, and a good splash of cream for some nice richness in the eggs. Once our crust is done baking, we'll pull it out and begin adding our ingredients. First one I'm going to do is the cooked chicken, to which I'm going to add several spoonfuls of sun-dried tomato, making sure to mix it in thoroughly so that with every bite, you'll be able to taste the incredible deliciousness. Over the top of all that, I'm going to pour the egg mixture that we just made, and top it all off with a whole lot of grated cheese. Now right here, I'm just using a blend of cheddar and mozzarella. Once we've topped it up with enough cheese, it's back into the oven for 15 to 20 minutes, during which time the eggs will firm up and the cheese will melt and bubble over the whole thing. Once it's done, pull it out and let it cool for about 20 minutes before digging in. I also threw a little sprinkling of herbs over the top, just to add some color and presentation. Now with our first quiche out of the way, it's pretty much just rinse and repeat for this next one. Now for this quiche crust, I also added about a cup of ground rosemary in with the flour and the salt, just to add a little flavor to the crust. I think it'll really mix well with the spinach and the onion and the garlic. But hey, it's your quiche. You can add whatever you want to the crusts to make them unique for your tastes. Now once the blind bake is done, I'm going to toss in the cooked onions and garlic, and then top the lot with a couple handfuls of fresh spinach, making sure to even them out across the top before tossing on more shredded cheese. The one that I'm using for this one is a delicious Dubliner cheese. It has a sharp but robust and incredible flavor that I think is going to complement the vegetables really, really well. So now, onto our little mini cupcake quiches. In order to get the right size to fit the little cupcake papers I have in there, I'm just using a little ramekin here and pressing it down hard into the dough to separate it from the rest before peeling it up and placing it in the tin. When I can't make any more rounds to fill in the cupcake papers, I'll just scrape up what I have left, mash it back into shape, roll it back out again, and then I'm set to go. Now, these ones were a little bit too small for me to want to weigh each individual one down, so I just placed it in the oven as is, and just let them brown up like that. There was a little bit of a rise, but not so much as to pose a problem. After the blind bake, they're already looking golden and delicious. Now I just want to fill these up enough that each one gets a good amount of bacon and leek, but there's still room enough for our egg to fill. So to help me with pouring the egg mixture that we made, I'm just using a little half-cup measuring cup to ladle in the egg. Top off the lot with more cheese, and into the oven they go. And there you have it, 3 amazing ways to make quiche.